This is Immortal Works Flash Fiction Friday, Episode 20, The Dark Glass, by James Wymore. Read for you by Jason King. This piece was featured in Under a Brass Moon, a steampunk anthology published by Curiosity Quills Press. You can check that out at curiosityquillspress.com. In the dimly lit basement, decorated with black and white spirit photographs, Harold Beasley looked like a mole in a mad scientist's laboratory. Beads of sweat left clean dots on his dirty, balding scalp. He scuttled back and forth between shelves of parts and tools to the table holding his newest invention. A brass ring surrounded a hat-sized disc of glass. Various wires and tubes fastened to the frame ran off in every direction like a junk art sunburst. Harold flipped a switch on a small steam engine mounted to one side. As it puttered, a large cog with wire brushes on the teeth spun. Soon the hair above Harold's ears stood on end as the air charged with static. He pushed a button and a small reservoir of ether drained into the space between the two gray panes of glass. Electricity arced through the ether, causing metal flakes trapped there to phosphoresce. Sweat from his forehead smeared as he wiped it on the dingy lab coat. He yanked off his goggles and stared deep into the pulsing nova. He prayed for the deceased spirit of one of his parents to manifest, so that he could finally apologize. When a face appeared in the electric haze, he jumped. "What strange hell is this?" The deep voice echoed with centuries of pain. "I want to talk to Margie Beasley." Harold's voice was higher. "I am alone here, but I desperately need your help. I seek revenge on an evil man who killed me and many others, trapping our souls in limbo. Will you help me?" For a moment, Harold wanted to refuse. He hoped to relieve the sadness gripping his heart, but looking on the pulsing electric form of a great man, he felt moved. Sure. Barren, ugly, and poor, the old woman had spent a bitter lifetime gutting fish at the docks. Her one great attempt at running away from a horrible childhood had landed her here. Accepting abusers, no men had paid her any attention. Her few friends had passed away years ago and left her alone in a cold life. So the old woman did the only thing left, and turned to witchcraft. It started naively. A few curses on her boss or the tax collector, intoxicated by the novelty of power so long denied her throughout the cankered decades of her life. She wondered why she hadn't tried it sooner. But as she sat in the middle of a pentagram, surrounded by a circle of ground powder and 5 candles, she wondered if this might be taking things too far. A monster seized her mind. She felt power fill her soul, and for a moment she reveled in it. Physical strength, so long used to control her, now coursed through her muscles. Pain twisted her into convulsions. Through muffled cries, her legs lurched and she kicked over one of the candles, brushing away part of the circle. The candle rolled and ignited the threadbare curtains. "I am Gornash, and you are the vessel of my sojourn, the vehicle of my wrath." This last thought echoed through the migraine before the presence eclipsed her mind. Sneering, the frail body stomped out into the street. The building seeped black smoke behind her. It took only seconds for the possessed hag to locate a scrawny alley cat for lunch. Harold talked to the ghost in the dark glass for hours. He called himself Trevane. He was a Templar knight who had been tricked by an evil priest and had his soul harvested for the energy to fuel some unholy magic. For centuries, Trevane had been trapped in a void, unable to move on to paradise or prison. Gornash, the evil wizard, had sacrificed many souls and gained a kind of dark immortality, which allowed him to periodically return and take over an unwitting host, spreading death and chaos. With the help of the ghost knight, Harold managed to locate the cursed woman that detectives all over New England had failed to apprehend. After much discussion, a small fortune, and weeks of intensive labor, he constructed another machine. This time he made it bigger, based on the same electrified ether as the first. Despite easily destroying a large posse of armed men who had once cornered her, the serial killer continued to choose weak and pathetic people to torture and kill. The trail of bodies along the East Coast led steadily this way. They would only have one chance to bait her. If the possessed woman passed by, they would have to start over. Before a dark alley, Harold slumped in a wheelchair, begging. His dirty rags and face managed to earn him 2 small coins so far that day. Praying she would take the bait, he jumped when she leaped out at him from nowhere. Her eyes crazed, foam surrounded her snaggle-toothed maw. He didn't have to pretend. Fear twisted his face as he rolled the wheelchair back between 2 buildings to get away. She rushed toward him, clawing with arthritic fingers caked in dry blood. She screamed as she fell through a trap door his chair straddled, into the 10-foot deep chamber. Harold jumped forward and sealed the hole with an iron lid and a clamp he screwed closed. As he ran for the nearby door, she worked some kind of magic against the lock. It shook and rattled as the mechanism started to unwind. Eyes wide, he smashed his hand on the button that released gallons of ether into the dark chamber. Then he cranked the lever to start a locomotive steam engine before running back outside. The lock stood open as her gnarled fingers lifted the metal lid from the portal. Harold rushed forward and jumped on the lid. He half expected to cut her fingers off. The hag wailed. When he jumped again, she retracted her filthy digits. His eyes burned from escaping ether fumes. He held his breath as he stomped the lid back into place. An unseen force jiggled the locking screw open again. Harold refastened the clamp and smashed the bolt with a nearby rock, hoping the crushed threads would keep her dark magic from shaking it open again. He leaped off, praying the device would hold for a few seconds, and ran back inside, taking the stairs in pairs and ignoring the loose sand that threatened to make him slip. In the room below, a gas lantern illuminated a large, dark glass window smeared with metal flecks that allowed him to see into the sealed chamber beyond. Through it, he watched the witch chanting against the lock and levitating toward the opening seal. As a tiny ray of light shone down from above, he cranked the only dial in the room to maximum. Bolts of lightning generated by the massive roaring steam engine thundered through the cage. With each twisted arc, the woman's body convulsed in agony. "It's not enough," the knight said from the round pane mounted on the adjacent wall. "She must be dead by now," Harold said as the body slumped to the ground, still twitching whenever electricity shocked it. "She might be, but the evil spirit is not. The vile beast will continue to control her puppet body long after it has expired." Her now animated corpse, singed by electrical burns and phosphorescing in the electrolyzed ether, still rose toward the opening seal in the roof. Her hair shot out in every direction, radiating sparks. Her face twisted into a grimace so horrible it made the blood drain from his face. "Throw me in," Trevane said. "How will that—" "There's no time, please." Harold grabbed the heavy glass disc and attached wires from the wall. Once disconnected, the image faded with the static charge. He ran back up the stairs. The lid was half open, and the woman's head rose amid stray electrical sparks like a demon crawling out of hell. He kicked her head back down and threw the dark glass disc into the hole amid the nauseous fumes. The pane cracked on her shoulder and shattered on the floor. He fastened the clamp, wincing as it shocked him several times. He bashed the bolt with the rock again, bending it into a curve before jogging back down the stairs. The necromancer, now extricated from the old woman's body, shrieked and swore as the electricity burned her discarded flesh to ash. The malevolent spirit beat against the glass, trying to get at Harold, frustrated and impotent. Trevane the Ghost Knight drew a longsword. "Your terror ends now." Lines of black magic radiating from the monster's hand blasted the night. Dim light glinted off the sword as the metal-clad ghost slashed at the thrusting tendrils. Those, unsevered, bounced off the metal armor. One reached through the helmet and slashed Trevane's face. The knight rolled around the flailing snakes and reached with his sword. In a silver flashing arc, it connected with Gornash's hand. The magical tentacles evaporated. As the knight lifted his sword for a final blow, the wizard rushed to the side. Upon the grainy glow of electrified metal flakes swirling in the ether, Harold saw the action blur. The monster flew in circles, creating a vortex of ether and metal in the center of the chamber, drawing all the lightning from the thundering steam into the center. Harold pulled off his goggles, trying to see better. Caught in the lightning dervish, Trevane cringed in pain. Somehow, the wizard used the electricity as a weapon against the knight. Harold didn't know what to do. He couldn't stand to watch as the noble warrior fell. It would only be so long before the specter broke free of this trap and resumed killing again. Harold did the only thing he could. He rushed upstairs and pulled the lever to turn off the steam engine. As the pressure whistled through the vent and the giant static generator's flywheel spun down, Trevane's pain eased. However, the Ghost Knight did not act quickly. He kneeled, holding the cross of the sword before him, and whispered a prayer. The disembodied wizard coalesced behind him, In an instant, the knight's helmet came loose and the monstrous villain bit into Travain's neck. Dark blood oozed from the ghost's jugular. Heedless, Travain spun, a single blur, and the longsword impaled Gornash. The sneer twisted to agony as the villain wrapped his hands around the blade. Travain yanked the sword free, cutting gashes into the palms and fingers of the beast. The wizard raised his bleeding hands for another spell. The picture dimmed as less electricity pumped in to illuminate it. Travain brought his sword around with a deft slash, decapitating the demon. In seconds, the knight hacked the monster to pieces, which floated about in the maelstrom burning. "Thank you, Harold," Travain said through the dark portal. He had one glove clamped against the gash in his neck. "I'll turn the machine back on," Harold said, poised to run back upstairs. "I can build another mirror to sustain you." "No, it is over." "But if I don't turn it back on, you'll die." "I'm already dead. We have saved this world from a great evil, and I have regained some honor. The souls he harvested can finally move on. I have wanted this for a long time." "Is there any way you can help me reach my parents? I have to apologize. I have to tell them I'm sorry. It's my fault they—" Harold smeared a tear into the dirt on his cheeks. "They have moved on," Travain said. "They are already at peace. They would want you to be at peace too. They know you did not want to hurt them. Were they good people?" "Yes, they were the best." "Then I will see them soon and give them your message. They will be proud of what you have done here." "Thank you." Harold took deep breaths as the engine finally huffed to a stop. The last arcs of electricity showed him the departing soul before darkness filled the empty chamber. Thanks for listening to Flash Fiction Friday. If you have a piece of flash fiction, something around 500 to 1,500 words, and want to have it read on our podcast, please send it in to submissions at immortal-works.com.